Well, good evening, guys. You've been watching me, if you're on here, you've been watching me shuffle my papers around for the last few minutes, just making sure I've got all my notes together. And happy Wednesday. I'm coming to you live. This is not a recording. And so delighted to have the couple of you that are on here. Here's the thing that's amazing. I'm gonna start with something else before we get into announcements and some other things like this. We just generated, I believe it was this week. It may have been the end of last week. Coronavirus has completely destroyed my sense of time. Was it this week? Was it last week? We just sent out Q2 giving statements. The way our calendar works at the church, our finance committee doesn't approve last month's finance report until the end of the next month. So while the quarter ended at the end of June, the financial report was not approved to the end of July, which is why it's usually the second week of August when we send out the Q2 giving statement. I hope that makes sense. So there's an order to how things happen. And if you are, and all of this kind of comes together in a great way here tonight. If you are a regular financial contributor to our church, you get the giving report. It's just a way to encourage you and to remind you and to provide some sense of accountability. In order to prepare for that report, we try to put together some meaningful statistics. And excuse me. In order to compile those statistics, we're looking at all kinds of different things. And admittedly, coronavirus has made it a challenge to find meaningful statistics. We're not meeting the same way. We're not doing the same things. There are prohibitions on getting together, and we just kind of discovered over the last several weeks that our partnership with Northside Elementary, there's just most of the things that we have done that we're not allowed to do right now. They're not letting people on campus. And so kind of a challenge to, hey, Wise family, I just saw that you jumped on there. We're a challenge to put together our Q2 giving report. I was aware of some of the statistics, but I was still surprised. And so whether you didn't check your email for your giving statement or you just didn't see it, here's just gut level honesty. I think there's the temptation. I think everybody is technology weary. We would rather be doing this in person. There are some conveniences. I have recorded the last couple of weeks early because I've had some other obligations that I've needed to kind of take care of. And quite honestly, that's a huge convenience. I can't do that for an in-person meeting. I can do that here. So typically, and tonight, let me flip over here and look at the screen here. Yeah, so like right now, there's not a ton of people watching live. 10 devices, maybe 20 people. And I don't know everybody who's on right now. I know the Yateses and Peggy and the Wises and Scott Crouch. So it is, honestly, a church of 300 people. It is a little bit of a discouragement to plan and prepare and then look and go, man, there's only 10 devices, maybe 20 people. Typically, we take the number of devices and multiply by 2. So here's the thing. When we talk about our engagement, both on Sunday mornings and on Wednesday night, Q2, now you got to remember Easter was in Q2. And Easter, I think we had like 900 people. We had like 450 devices tune in to our Easter services. You multiply that by 2, you're talking, actually no, it's 400 devices multiplied by 2 is 857. No, I think it was 957. 957 people. Now, granted, there are some people that maybe started the video, stopped it, and came back and watched the second half, got up to go to the bathroom or whatever. So if you pause it, that doesn't count, but people who maybe logged out and logged back in, our average engagement for Sunday morning has been 501 people. It's kind of shocking. 501 people. Now, I know my grandmother's watching. I know my mom and dad watch. I know my in-laws down in Texas are watching. I can't explain the vast majority of it. I know there may be people who get disconnected and come back in and get counted as a separate device. But still, even accounting for a 10% margin of error, that's a lot of people. Here's what's amazing, and this was perhaps the thing that was most encouraging to me. On a pre-COVID Wednesday night, a good Wednesday night might have 25, 35, maybe 40 people in our Wednesday evening Bible study. During coronavirus, quarter two, our Wednesday night engagement has been 257 people. There's some really big lessons to learn there. Whether it's a business meeting or whether it's a Bible study. The truth is, more people will engage if you give them the opportunity to engage at a time that's convenient to them. If they have to show up Sunday night at 6 o'clock or they have to show up Wednesday night at 6 o'clock, they're just going to say, hey, no thanks, I can't do it. I'm coming from Charlotte at 5. There's no way I can be there. And so, I think one of the things that I am learning to appreciate is just the busyness of life and how there's no way around this. Your programming and the time that you do what you do isn't going to work for everybody. And it's amazing to me to go 257 people engaging on a weekly basis, not live, but you give it a week, we may have 20 devices here tonight. But by the time the week is over, we'll have 120 devices, 110, something like that, 150. That's a pretty amazing thing to think through the reach of what's happening there. And who's looking for Wednesday night stuff on YouTube? It's the craziest thing. So there's some really good news there, and that goes into a little bit of kind of what we're talking about tonight when we talk about just thank you for the fellowship. There's a number of ways that I think we need to say thank you to each other. It's encouraging to hear the average of 501. Now, to be truthful, everybody's getting weary of the technology. So quarter three, the numbers are not what they were. It's kind of like the novelty has worn off, but our numbers are still super encouraging and higher than they would be even live. So take that for what it's worth, church. Be encouraged for that. And good to see Johnny and Tonda on here too. Thanks for saying hi. It really is helpful to know who's here. So if you can sign in and say hello, just know that's appreciated, that I'm not just talking to my camera or talking to myself, doing something like that tonight. I'll say this too. Our giving has been very much on target. We are less than 1% in 2020. We're within 1% of where we were in 2019 giving wise. So we're right on target. And our spending is roughly $25,000 behind our receipts. So we have margin. Things are really good. So thank you. One of the ways, two of the ways that we talk about what fellowship is. Fellowship is definitely financial. I have a list here. You're not going to be able to see this very well. I have a list here of every time the word fellowship occurs in the New Testament. And I want to be careful about that. I have that somewhere. I'm not sure if this is that document, but somewhere I have a list of all the times the word fellowship occurs in the New Testament. And you'll see here, I've got this one says partner. That's a frowny face for suffering. On this side, you'll see there's a dollar sign. And there's a dollar sign. There's a dollar sign. There's a dollar sign. Those are all places in the New Testament where the Bible says that your participation or your contribution, the word that's used there is fellowship. And so, one of the ways that you express fellowship with the church is by supporting financially its ministries, supporting its outreach, supporting all of its different kinds of things. And so, in the midst of this coronavirus craziness, man, there are so many things to worry about. And honestly, I'm not above that. There have been lots of things I've been worried about. Yeah, I don't even know where to start, and don't even know that it would be appropriate. But there's folks that are struggling. We don't have anybody in our church that I'm aware of that has had coronavirus. I know people who have had coronavirus, or extended family, coworkers. But I'm not aware of anyone that has been who's lost their job or been really significantly adversely affected. Now, the truth is, everybody who has a retirement plan that's invested in the stock market, everyone has felt the pinch, probably financially, but our church is not. And you have no idea what a blessing it is. And listen, and not just for me as a pastor, for you as a church, to know that our finances have proven to be remarkably stable, even though, man, last time we met as a church was March 15th, everybody. It's been 6 months. That's crazy. And so there's a strong sense of fellowship. If we understand fellowship is financial support, there's been a very strong sense of fellowship, and I'm very grateful for that. So let me remind you kind of why we're doing some of the things that we're doing, just in case you need a reminder. I get some people kind of asking, "Hey, can we go inside?" Man, that AC would be really nice. Listen, there's nobody. Trust me, there's nobody that would appreciate that more than me. I am probably the person who's sweating the most. People have said I'm full of hot air. Preaching outside has proven that to me. It's not comfortable, but we think we are commanded to worship, and we're going to worship in some way, shape, or form. If that's via live stream, if that's in person, we're going to worship. Our commission is to make disciples. We want to put good biblical content out there. We want to encourage people. We want people to find community. I cannot tell you how important I believe this sermon series that we're going through right now is. One of the things that has been exposed, I think, during this time is how unsatisfactory our sense of community has been for some of our young people. Some of that is relative newness to the area, maybe not biological connection. I think by and large, we have a really sweet group of senior adults who, for the most part, have been together for a really long time. They have a really, I think, strong sense of community. Our young folks have not been together. They haven't lived enough life, don't have enough experience, maybe have not connected with the same kind of depth that some of our senior adults have done. And so, there are so many things that I think we need to hear. We are consumers of community, but sometimes we want it without fully participating. And the truth is, you can't have fellowship without participation. You have to be a part of it. You have to be a contributor. You can't sit in the balcony and watch it. You can appreciate it, but you don't receive it. And so, some of our young people need to hear that. Hey, roll up your sleeves and jump in here with us. And then you'll begin to experience that fellowship, that partnership that happens. You don't get it sitting back and just watching. And so, the challenge is we want to worship. We want to provide some sense of community. We want to build disciples, and we want to do all of that within the context of being responsible and being safe. And I'm preaching to the choir because the vast majority of you who are probably watching this actually engage with us on Sunday morning via the live stream. Let me just tell you how much I appreciate your perseverance with us in that direction. I'll tell you something, and you can fact check me. Just ask, check it out. There's so much weird stuff that's going on, but this past Sunday, there were, again, for the second Sunday in a row, 7 YBA pastors out of their pulpit because they're having indoor services and they have been exposed to they've been close to someone who had coronavirus. So now they're quarantining for the next 2 weeks. I do not know many churches that can say nobody within our immediate sphere of influence has had the coronavirus. Now, contacts of contacts, but no immediate contacts. And we have been spared significant, financial adversity. Easily 70% of churches in the United States are either on either of those issues, physical health or financial health, hurting. It's just kind of where things are at. We have been, and I'll even say this, we have been uniquely spared. Now, that doesn't mean that we're never going to have a case of coronavirus, that we're never going to have financial difficulty. But right now, guys, that's a major thing to praise God for. And so I will say this too. There are some new things that Lord willing, just in the kind of beginning stages of conversation, there are things that have been prayed about and thought about for a really long time. And I can say this, I think the fall, well, I don't think, the fall will look different. Hopefully you think that some of the differences will be a good thing. But what I am earnestly trying to do is not just preach a sermon series. I really, truly want all of our church to feel a sense of community with every single person. That doesn't mean everybody needs to be your BFF. Not everybody needs to be your best friend. You need to know people. And you don't just need to know about people, you need to know people. So there are two initiatives, having conversations about kind of what our fall programming looks like. None of this would take place until after Labor Day. So beginning some of those conversations about how do we really be seriously intentional about building this sense of community. Now, how do we do it? How do we help? I can't make you do it, but I can facilitate some of that. So it would be inappropriate for me to speak anything now because these things are under conversation. And here's what I love. As they are being discussed, they will come back better than they are because those conversations will refine and help that whole process. So we want to worship. We want to make disciples. We want to teach everything that Jesus has commanded. We want to provide community, but we want to do things safe and responsible. And I'm proud of our church that God has allowed us to do the things that we've done. And from a stewardship perspective, I'm grateful to God that nobody has gotten sick as a result of our church. That can't be said kind of around all over the place. And so that's a good thing. So first one, kind of what are we doing? What's our engagement been like? Kind of rehearsing a little bit related to the giving statement that went out. And if you guys have questions about that too, please ask them. I can see the comments here. The shortcoming of this medium is interaction. And so I can see people saying, hey, how are you? Hello, I'm here. Interaction's a good thing. I miss it. That's what it is. So some encouragement related to our engagement, our financial picture. Why are we doing what we're doing? We want to be obedient to the Great Commission to worship God, to build disciples, but to do so in a responsible and safe fashion. Third, to talk a little bit about this. So this right here is what Angela is going to be using to make our ballot for Sunday. Now, if you want to ask me really detailed questions about this, I'm not going to be able to answer them because some of the stuff gets real technical when we talk about civil engineering. But we have painfully tried to think through what's the best way for us to vote. When the Long Range Planning Committee, I think 3 years ago, said we're not going to spend any money without express consent from the church. At the time, I thought that was a really good idea. When you have a really difficult mechanism for voting, I don't think that's such a good idea anymore. And it's just a challenge. So we can't just mail ballots to everyone. Our Constitution and bylaws specifically prohibits absentee ballots. And you know this, when you vote in a church, you at least have to go to the trouble of showing up. And here we'd be mailing a ballot to you if it went to the wrong address or if you had moved and we sent it to the former occupant it could just really mess things up because we don't have control when it leaves the office. So we're doing a drive-up vote. People who will hand out ballots, people who are in the courtyard will hand out ballots at 9 o'clock. And on your way out at 10 o'clock, you can, that's when voting starts, you can submit your ballot into the offering box that we're using on Sunday morning, and you're done. But for those of you that don't have the ability right now to join us for worship in the courtyard, between 10 and 2, you'll have the opportunity to come by, pull up under the carport. We'll hand you a ballot. You fill it out, fold it up, we drop it off. Bada boom, bada bing, we're done. You still have to come to church. It's not an absentee ballot. You have to get in your car and you have to come to church, even if you didn't come that morning to vote. So there's some control, there's some initiative. We're not encouraging laziness. We're for it's controlled. The deacons will be there. At least two deacons will be there for accountability to hand out the ballot, to receive the ballot, to put it in the ballot box. In the motion that I made on behalf of the Long Range Planning Committee is to approve the spending of up to $50,000. Now, we may not spend that much. We wanted to ask for more than what we needed in case projections overshot or something like that. But to be clear, the money's coming from designated. It's not coming from our operating budget. So this money is money that's sitting in an account related to our building fund. This is not general fund operating expenses. This is money that's been designated for those purposes. Some of this is for services already received. Some of it is for services that Cope Construction is planning for us. So the $50,000 that we're asking for you to spend, $30,000 of it is related to a redesigned architectural concept and design. When we presented schematics, I think in January, we had set a budget for the architect. He didn't adhere to that. And so the building was, I think, beautiful, very functional, very utilitarian. I mean, it just, with less square footage than we have right now, it accomplished a lot. It just wasn't in our price range. And so we had to do some things to kind of tweak that. Boy, did they provide some tweaking. So the general outline is still the same, but there's some pretty major tweaks and adjustments that have been made. That's been done. We owe them, and we've owed them for 6 weeks. $30,000 is related to that. $10,000 is related to civil engineering work and additional topographical work that needs to be done. That's very technical. I can't explain that to you. And also, on the new architectural design, Keith Patterson and I are going to put together a video to kind of walk you through that kind of stuff. That's the challenge too, is how do you do this? There's really no good way. But we want you to see what we've got and what we're working on. And then the last $10,000 is really a contingency in case there's any overruns on the projections that we've been given, or if there is another additional small project that Cope says, hey, I need $1,000 to put these markers up. It prevents us from having to come back and do a vote for every little piddly thing, and gives the long-range planning committee just a little bit of discretion. So that's about the best that I think that I can do explaining that. I'm not a civil engineer. I couldn't explain to you everything that they're going to do. We've got documentation explaining that. Topographical work is just checking out elevations, and we've got some really low points. It evaluates where trees are on your property, helps them to figure out where they're going to lay lines for like sewer, power, all that kind of stuff. So we're doing that on Sunday. You'll get a ballot that says, I approve spending this $50,000 in these 3 areas. You choose one, yes, no, abstain. Thank you for doing that. And I really would encourage you, make it a priority to vote. We don't want to do things without your express permission. But we want to make sure that that's happening too. A couple prayer requests, and this is kind of a hodgepodge of kind of a long way of getting to thank you for the fellowship. We've already talked about how fellowship is financial. You express fellowship by your support. Thank you for that. We express fellowship. One of the second ways that we express fellowship is through suffering together. So if you've ever had a hard time and people have brought you a meal, people have sent you a card, that's the fellowship we call of suffering. And there's all kinds of Bible verses that talk about that. There's 3 main ways that the Bible talks about fellowship. One is contributing either giving of your financial resources, of your life energy. I am pouring my life out for you. I'm contributing to you, or I'm pulling my pocketbook out. I'm contributing to you. That's one of the ways fellowship is described. The other one is a fellowship where we share suffering together. The third version is just partnership. It's active. We're doing something together. I'm extending to you the hand of fellowship. I'm welcoming you as a partner. And so those are the three kind of faces of fellowship: giving our financial, consoling each other through suffering, and partnering with each other for the gospel. And so we suffer with each other when we deal with hardships. And so, and we rejoice with each other. So kind of a major prayer request that's come through. Tom Burrows received grant money for a new medicine and an extraordinarily expensive medicine that he would not have been able to receive if he had not received this grant. And so Nancy was just super excited to say this grant that she thought was going to take months to get, they got within like 10 days. And now he is on this medicine and kind of making his adjustment to that. We've got a number of people just dealing with persistently annoying problems. So I hope Grijalva has been dealing with vertigo. I know Doris Boatwright has been dealing with leg and back issues. Ann Adams has been dealing with back issues. Connie Wise has been dealing with back issues. And here's the challenge. In some of these situations, there's no easy solution. So Hilda is continuing to recover. Her eyesight is getting better. She had an appointment today, and I haven't been able to talk to her about that. But I think that she is doing she's doing well. I just don't know what the latest update is. I'm trying to think here. Anything else that we've listed here on the notes? There's not. I would say this: pray for teachers. School's getting ready to start. I mean, and schools have been delayed. They're starting after Labor Day. Marcy's school starts with it's a teacher training week next week, and they start the following week. So pray for teachers. Most people don't have a private opinion about what's going on with schooling. People are either all in or adamantly opposed. There's not a lot of gentleness that's gone on with those conversations. And so we have teachers who are believers that are in the midst of this mess, that we just need to pray, shine the light of the gospel in the midst of this. I will say this too. I'm not here at church this weekend. We are moving Chloe into Charleston Southern University this weekend. And so I believe we're moving in on Saturday. And we're planning on worshiping with her Sunday morning and then dropping her off and coming home. And I am super excited for Chloe. But she's the first chick out of the nest. To say that this has been easy would not be true. I tell people all the time, I have kissed her forehead every single night that she's been alive. And it's just hard to give that up. It really is. So pray for my dad. So my dad heart. Pray for Marcy. It's been stressful, but not in a bad way. It's just stressful saying goodbye. And she's only 2.5 hours away. I get it. Don't give me any flack for loving my kid. You have been in an experience too where you have had to say goodbye. And it's just different. It's different. I did tell Colin, because he keeps asking, why are you so sad? Why are you so sad? I'm like, buddy, I haven't done this before. And just, she's going to come back a different girl, and things are just different. The relationship changes. And I told him, I said, here's one thing you can be sure: when you go to college, we're just going to slow down on the interstate and kick you out because you'll be the fourth one. He was not impressed, to say the least. So we would just appreciate your prayers. Dan is preaching for me on Sunday, and I'm very grateful for him doing that for me, continuing in our series talking about fellowship. And I think he's got a really interesting passage. So when we were planning out our preaching, he has the passage that I wanted, but he has handled it extraordinarily well, and I'm excited for what you guys are going to hear on Sunday morning. So pray for teachers, pray for us as we're dropping our student off, and we're looking forward to it. I mean, what a She's ready for it. She's mature. She's responsible, and she is ready to go. I just wish, I wish she was going to miss us just a little bit more. She's looking forward to college life. Let me close with this. Talking about fellowship. So we've mentioned kind of fellowship's three phases. There's a financial phase to fellowship. There's a suffering together phase. And let me read some of these scriptures to you. Okay, Romans 12:13. Paul is thanking people for, the word is contributing. That's the word for fellowship, for contributing to the needs of the saints and practicing hospitality. Romans 15:26 says, for Macedonia and Achaia have been pleased to make a contribution, a financial gift for the poor. 2 Corinthians 8:4, that the Macedonians were begging us for the favor of participating in the support of the saints. That was a monetary collection. 2 Corinthians 9:13, he says that, Paul says to the Corinthians that there are others who will glorify God for your obedience to your confession of the gospel of Christ and for the liberality of your contribution to them all. Basically, he's saying there are people who don't believe yet who will believe because you funded the ministry that will lead them to faith in Christ, and they will be grateful not only for your faith, but for your contribution. So the financial thing is a big deal. The suffering thing, Paul says in 1 Corinthians 10:16, is not the cup of blessing which we bless a sharing in the blood of Christ? He's talking about the suffering of Christ and how knowing that Christ suffered helps us to endure the hardship that we face. 2 Corinthians 1:7 says, our hope for you is firmly grounded, knowing that as you are sharers of our sufferings, so also are you sharers of our comfort. There's a number of other Bible verses that talk about this. Philippians 3:10, that I may know him and the power of his resurrection and the fellowship of his sufferings, being conformed to his death. Hebrews 10:33. It's in the middle of a section. Partly by being made a public spectacle through reproaches and tribulations, suffering, and partly by becoming sharers with those who were so treated. We identify, when persecution's happening, you don't want to identify with the guy who's getting kicked because you might get beat up as well. And yet these people shared with those who were so shamed by being beat that they shared in their suffering. I love the conversation about partners. That's the word koinonia that we use for fellowship. Luke 5:10, when Jesus is calling the disciples, it says, and so also were James and John, the sons of Zebedee, who were partners with Simon. They were in fellowship with Simon. They were in business together. 2 Corinthians 6:14, do not be bound together with unbelievers. For what partnership have righteousness and lawlessness? Or what fellowship has light with darkness? 2 Corinthians 8:23, as for Titus, he is my partner and fellow worker among you. Galatians 2:9, Paul's talking about his conversion, how people avoided him because they thought it was a ruse. They didn't think he was really converted. Disappeared into the desert for a few years to study, then came back and found a way to be associated with the apostles. And in Galatians 2:9, it says, in recognizing the grace that had been given to me, James and Peter and John, who were the pillars of the church, gave to me and to Barnabas the right hand of fellowship. A handshake. It's partnership. Paul, you're with us. We don't view you as an outsider. You're not a persecutor. We've tested you. We recognize God's work in you, and we extend to you the right hand of fellowship. Philemon 1:7, Paul runs into Onesimus, the runaway slave, and tells him, hey, listen, running away is not right. You need to go back to your master. But to Philemon, he says in verse 17, that if you regard me as a partner, accept him as you would me. 1 Peter 5:1, Peter says, therefore I exhort the elders among you as your fellow elder and witness of the sufferings of Christ, and a partaker also of the glory that is to be revealed. That partaking, he is partaking in the sufferings of Christ, and he will partake also in the glory of Christ. That's a good thing. And so I want to challenge you guys here a little bit to just really think, um, what can you do to contribute to a spirit or a sense of fellowship? The Bible, if you have a good concordance, the Bible has, oh goodness, it's like 60 one another statements. Admonish one another, be united with one another, serve one another, be kind to one another, be tenderhearted to one another, forgive one another, speak to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, teach one another, build up one another, help one another, be patient with one another, bear one another's burdens, comfort one another, look out for one another's interests, have fellowship with one another, employ your gift in serving one another. Are there two ways that you can think of contributing to the fellowship? That could be your words. We talked about that this past weekend, about how your words can be deadly dangerous. Some people have no idea what a discouragement they can be because they're not careful with their words. Well, here's the thing that's awesome. Just as words can be discouraging, they can be encouraging. And, I want to say something here too. We're wrapping up here. I don't think it was last week. Was it last week? No, I think maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I shot our Wednesday night study from my car. I'm not going to defend it. Popular format. I've seen late night television hosts. There's TV shows that do that. It was an honest attempt to try to think through maybe doing some things, and I got a little bit of flack for that. I did, but I'll tell you one of the things that I appreciate, and this was fellowship. There's a and I'm not going to mention who, but there's someone who texted me and said, "Man, I really appreciated what you shared about sharing the gospel." She shared a personal story too about that. And then in a very gentle way, she just encouraged me to think through doing Wednesday Bible study while I'm driving. I really appreciated that. There was not 1 ounce of condemnation. I was encouraged by that. And I just wanted to make it really clear, in addition to thanking her, which I have not done privately, and I should have. So I'm doing it publicly, and I will do it privately, how much I appreciated that text message. I think most people probably under 40 have seen YouTube videos and other things where I'm trying to do things responsibly. I'm not going to do it again. I'm really not. Not because I feel admonished or I'm embarrassed. I'm just not. I don't want anything I do to ever be considered below reproach. I want to be above reproach in everything that I do. And so that's fellowship. When you love someone enough to speak the truth in love, and there's no question that it's spoken in love and it's received in love. And the outcome of that is beautiful. And so, guys, when we talk about being careful with our words, some of you are masterful at that. You're very careful. You know how to provide incredible encouragement, even when you're saying difficult things. May God multiply your tribe. May God increase your number. Because there's probably an equal number of people who really are kind of careless about the damage that they do with their words. And so think through ways that you can be an encourager. Think through ways that you can build the fellowship. Think through ways that you can use your finances, use your time, use your life to come alongside someone and partner with them, perhaps in suffering, but to use the resources that God has entrusted to you to be a blessing to others for the glory of God. That's what we're called to do. It's really that simple. Hey, listen, we're gonna wrap up here, and I just want to say I love you. I miss you. I miss all of you. I've been greatly encouraged by our folks in the courtyard, but I've been even more encouraged knowing that you guys are faithfully tuning in. I will say this: the last 4 Sundays, we have visitors showing up to worship in the courtyard. We have visitors showing up on the live stream. We just don't have a good way of identifying who they are. I wish we had a better way to do that. And so please here, if you think that there are some ways that we can make our live stream more engaging, we're all ears. We want to know. Well, we're figuring this out kind of as we go along. But also, if you know of struggles that people are having, please do not assume that we know. Please don't assume that. If you assume that, there may be a need that goes unmet. So please just let us know what you know. And if you're struggling with stuff or you have questions about just dealing with life or what's going on, where, why, how, I cannot promise that we have a good answer, but we would love the conversation. I had several people stop in the office today that hadn't seen for a couple of weeks. Man, what a refreshing time it was. Mildred Powell stopped in the office today. David Fickling stopped in the office today, and it's good. So pray for us. We are praying for you, and pray for us as we are making some plans. I'm really excited. I'm super encouraged. I think we're finding a way to be responsible, to have some new outdoor activities that we're doing, to find some ways to do some really, and I'm going to say this, please receive this well, not bad, some very non-traditional ways to do some programming that is intentionally kind of focused on trying to build fellowship. We're trying to push people to say, there are people in our church that you have withheld fellowship from, and we're going to do our best as your staff to prevent you from being able to do that. We want you to get just a little bit uncomfortable to build relationships with new people. And I hope you will join us in this venture. Please do. It's what God wants for you. It's what your staff wants for you. And we think we have some rather innovative, but simple. Listen, we can't do anything complex right now. We just can't. We're not going back to normal. But we think in this mix that we're in right now, we have some really good plans. And I don't want to build it up. It's two simple things. Simplified schedule. Sunday mornings, Wednesday nights, not changing. That's not happening. We're adding some things that are church-wide. Maybe we'll be geared a little more towards young people. But I can tell you that some folks are really struggling with what to do with their kids and all of this. And so everyone is invited to participate in these things. And especially if you are a mature saint, I really hope you'll jump at the opportunity. You have young people that don't even know how to put into words their need for relationships with people that are wiser than them. You've got it. You need to share it. I love you guys. Thanks for being with us tonight. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hear the thunder rumbling. Be safe. Bye-bye.